What's the saddest fact you know? There is a genetic disorder that makes it impossible for some people to sleep. So far only 20 people are known to have it. And none have lived past 30. There's a recording of the last cow bird singing before it went extinct. It was a mating call sung by a male bird. The song has breaks for the female bird to respond. A guy in my area had just retired on a Friday. The following Wednesday he was out fishing and a thunderstorm came up. He pulled his boat out of the lake and while standing next to his car on the boat ramp lightning took him out. 5 blessed days of retirement. Elephants will mourn other elephants in their group dying and will hold funerals for them and will even recognize the bones of said elephant and cry out in sadness. Read about a dolphin who had learned some basic communication and was in some sort of pen. Dolphins can suicide by going underwater and refusing to go back up for air. This dolphin was miserable and told its handler goodbye before going under and killing itself. The fact the dolphin was sentient enough to choose suicide breaks my heart. Thank you for the hug award. There is a plastic bag at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. All whales eventually lose the energy to surface for oxygen. Damn. It would be crazy if people had a problem like that. Every year it gets harder and harder to stay planted on solid ground. Gravity has less and less pull. Until one day we just float away and freeze to death. Swans can die of broken heart when their mates die. This can happen with a number of monogamous bird species. Tawny frogmouths have been observed sitting next to their dead partner crying until they died of starvation. I once saw a galah sitting in heavy traffic next to the body of its dead mate, heedless of the cars passing overhead. Birds love hard. The Christmas after the peaceful Christmas during World War I was one of the bloodiest days of the war. Researchers accidentally killed the oldest animal in 2006. Dodo birds were really friendly because they had no natural predators and we killed them all. Junco Ferrota's killers are alive and well and free. A majority of people, when asked, would rather die at home than at the hospital. A majority of people, when recorded, die at the hospital rather than at home. If a sheep is not sheared, it will be weighed down and eventually fall over. That sex trafficking children is real. Actively ongoing. For animal testing involving dogs, most laboratories use beagles as they are the most forgiving of the people inflicting pain on them. Many people go through the last years of their life sad and chronically lonely. Life is made up of meetings and partings. That is the way of it. Kermit. I learned today that if a grizzly bear has a single cub it will abandon it. I forget the percentage of it but a shocking amount of people die alone with no spouse or family. This always seemed to be a pessimistic estimation to me but it really sunk in when I worked in a hospital. Which means our chances of dying alone in some nursing home or house is higher than we think. 785 million people do not have access to safe water. Access includes having water within a 30-minute round trip for collecting it and carrying it home. Life can be heartbreakingly unfair. A friend's sister suddenly passed away because of a heart attack last summer at age 40, leaving behind a bright, young, an orphan son. My friend and his wife immediately took him in, gave him a home, and cared so much for him. They were very careful, loving, and considerate. They found a preschool for him, went to therapy with him and participated in it in order to support him getting through the trauma of losing your only parent. In December my friend passed away because of a heart attack. That some of the remaining people in concentration camp actually died because of overeating. Keep in mind, this wasn't stuffing your face with pizza type overeating. This was drink milk and die type overeating. A lot of British troops gave ETH survivors concentrated rations, and their bodies couldn't handle it. An unknown amount died right after being freed. An octopus dies after giving birth because she stops eating while hatching their eggs. Edit. She lays eggs and does not give birth. And she protects that egg and therefore eats nothing until it has hatched. I really didn't think right while typing the sentence, I'm sorry. Whenever I change an old spiral fluorescent or incandescent light bulb and seldom used fixture, I think to myself, this bulb will probably outlive me. I'm not dying of anything that I know of, but I'm at that age where I know most of my years are probably behind me. Most our pay is by a family member or family friend. If not brought to light, it is likely to keep occurring. It hit me like a brick. Was thinking about my dad who died at 73. Thinking about my age, 44, I realized my life was likely more than halfway over. All the men on my dad's side die at 77 or 78. He turns 76 this year. If your spouse commits suicide by self-inflicted gunshot wound, renter's insurance covers the repairs under the term of explosion. That every 20 seconds, a child dies from a lack of access to clean water. Diarrhea is the #1 leading cause of death in children. Chris Farley's last words were "Don't leave me," said to a prostitute who then stole his watch. Bill Finger, the man who created a vast majority of if not everything that makes Batman a success today, not only never got credit in his lifetime, but was also called a liar by Bob Kane. Kane, who came up with an idea of a bat-themed vigilante called the Batman, later used his father's law firm to make up a contract in which he not only got sole credit but also any major proceeds stemming from the success of Batman. Bill died penniless and on his couch in a shitty apartment in 1974 while Kane was running around telling everyone he created Batman and such. One of my neighbors has a 9-year-old daughter who has a very rare genetic condition. She's not expected to live much beyond her mid-late teens. The girl doesn't know and believes she's a perfectly normal child. It's heartbreaking to hear her saying that she wants to be a hairdresser when she grows up. I'm madly in love with my wife of 35 years. We are each other's best friends and we are together 24/7. We do massages on each other every morning and snuggle spoon together all night. We haven't spent a night apart in 3 decades. We are older now and I know one of us is going to die alone. My classmate's mom was always sad about how her husband was never around for her daughter's birthday since he was in the Merchant Navy and was on duty at the time year of his daughter's birthday. However, for her 18th birthday, after moving mountains, he managed to get a few days off to drop in. The parents planned this as a surprise for the girl. They dressed up in party costumes and opened her room door at 12 AM and yelled surprise, only to find their daughter hanging from the fan. One day, sometime far in the future, someone is going to speak your name for the very last time and then you'll be completely forgotten about. Stephen Hawking died a little over a year before the first photograph of a black hole. There has been a day when you and your childhood friend got out to play for the last time and none of you two was aware of it. There is a remote island in the South Pacific that had a lighthouse built on it in the 1700s. The keeper kept a cat to keep him company. Every day the cat would bring the keeper a dead bird. The keeper had never seen birds of this type before, so he kept the tiny carcasses to show scientists who'd be on exploration ships. The scientists determined that they were flightless songbirds, the only known species of flightless songbird ever discovered. Then and now. One day the cat just stopped bringing the birds to the keeper. One cat caused the extinction of an entire unique species. No one ever saw a living specimen and no one ever heard their song. With the African slave trade, America has many black people now who are descendants from the original people who were imported as slaves. Pretty much common knowledge. In Asia, with places like Saudi Arabia who also bought slaves, they do not have this as males were castrated, and I'm sure it was called cock and bull, where both testicles and penis would be removed. This was happening to male boys as young as 12 and the survival rate of the procedure was as low as 1 in every 5. How there's probably some dude scamming an old lady RN. That I won't get to feel my husband's presence anymore. Roughly half of the Donner Party were children. Why did I click on this? The Grinch lived where everyone dumped their trash. So how do you think he obtained his dog Max? Someone threw the dog away in a dump on the tip of a frozen cliffside. Surely to die. Duck the hose. You never get to see your child's entire life. Or you do. Yesterday I found out my wife has only a week left. The older we get, the older our parents get. My mom was 22. And my father was 24. When they both had me. At the age of 8. My father passed away. He was 32 years old at that time. Now. I'm 23 years old. And my mom's 46, so only got one parent left. And as much as I hope to have her forever. Sadly. One day. I'll lose her. Too. And that's just life. There are over 500 ancient languages that are either already extinct. Or in danger of being forgotten forever. Somewhere right now a child is being abused or fearing it happening again. You can do everything in your power and work as hard as you possibly can. Sometimes shit just doesn't work out. You very well won't ever accomplish your dream. Despite all your efforts. That I strongly regret reading through this post. About 80% of ducklings won't reach their first birthday. Mine is that there are a lot of dead bodies inside the death zone on Mount Everest. 99% of all species that have lived on planet Earth have gone extinct. The teen suicide rate is steadily increasing in multiple states, last time I checked. That whale calling on a frequency that no other whale can hear. I'm not going to find out what happened before the Big Bang. If there's life on other planets. If every one family for every one church adopted one child. Foster care would disappear from the USA. And yet. Benjamin, the last surviving thylacine, died because it was locked out of the indoor part of its enclosure for some reason on a very cold night in Hobart Zoo. Every 60 seconds in Africa a minute passes. Otters are rapists. As soon as a female is of age, males will violently attack her. Sometimes killing her and continuing to assault her corpse. The more sad fact is that our pay is unbelievably common in the animal world. It's not just otters. That in World War II. My co-worker's 25-year-old brother died of a heart attack with no drug use or health conditions. My neighbor around that time randomly had a brain aneurysm and luckily survived. Overfishing has caused sharks to move further inshore to hunt for food. You know what happens when they move closer to the shore? Yeah. We kill them. They're just trying to survive. Also, the shark fin trade is brutal. People will catch live sharks and slice their fins off before releasing them back into the ocean. Without their fins. Last year, in the worst of the pandemic, residents of North Korea had to hand over their pets to supply food. I can't even imagine how heartbreaking it had to be to send your source of happiness to let others and yourself eat it. People treating animals horribly will never stop. Dogs don't actually like hugs. They give signs of discomfort such as what's called a whale eye, showing the whites of their eyes, licking chops, and is pulled back. They don't understand what a hug is. Just that they are trapped, but usually dogs are too polite to do anything about it. Just stick with the ear scratching. The fact that in the grand scheme of things, nothing you do, say or feel matters. You will be dead very soon, and the history of the human race is a very small blip in time with a very, very small impact on the galaxy. Let alone the universe. Whenever you see a lone Canada goose, it has lost its family. Global warming is real. And oh man, is it coming. The oldest person in the world has outlived every single person that was alive when they were born. Present company included. There are a huge number of people in the developed world hungry, starving. When times are food, it's easy to think of hunger as some faraway problem. When times are bad you realize just how awful it is. Next time you can do so, buy your local homeless down on their luck person a burger. It's a few bucks to you. It's life or death to them. The crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger, or at least a good number of the crew, didn't die when the fuel tank exploded. They instead died upon impact with the ocean after their cabin fell 65,000 feet back to the ocean. There is also good evidence that they were conscious for their almost 3-minute free fall to Earth. The girl that voiced Ducky in Land Before Time was murdered, along with her mom, by her father. The average lifespan of an individual on the autism spectrum is 39 years. To lighten up the mood a little, here is a happy fact. In Welsh folklore, corgis were the preferred method of transportation for fairies. The term redskin didn't refer to the natives getting sunburn. In reality, it refers to a bounty from the 1700s placed on natives and their scalped heads. Eating disorders affect at least 9% of the global population. That's huge, and anorexia is the most lethal mental disorder there is. 1 in 10 people affected by it will die. Not the most lethal eating disorder. The most lethal mental disorder. And eating disorders rates have been climbing very rapidly these past few years. On 9/11, the search and rescue dogs were getting so sad from finding so many dead bodies that the search and rescue helpers hid themselves in rubble to make the dogs happy. Bonus fact. Dogs stay up thinking about their problems just like humans do. I dropped my sandwich on the floor today. George Floyd was not a good guy. The cause of death is still not okay, however. That cows are more aerodynamic than a Jeep Cherokee. The first and only time most men receive flowers is at their funeral. Edit. Thanks for the awards. But I'd love it if you spent your hard-earned money on doing something nice for someone in your life. Or even yourself. Because of the expansion of the universe, there will be a time where the night sky will have nothing. Those living in this new world will never see the stars. Never gaze in wonder at the millions of galaxies and solar systems that we see now. We will no longer see the universe's past. It'll just be us. We still have a few million years left though, so that's the bright side. Some people, either through loneliness, age, or mental health, so closed off from the outside world that they either can't or don't know how to take care of themselves until they die. Most of the time the only way for anyone to notice that something is wrong is either by accident or the smell. There was a Dutch guy who films the cleanup of those kinds of houses. He has a cleaning service specialized in those kinds of extreme cases. One woman's toilet backed up and she just did her business on the bathroom floor for months. In another case, a guy had a square meter of space to sleep in. The rest was literal garbage halfway up the wall. He even made holes in the walls and floors to stuff it in. White crows are killed on birth by their mother, and if they aren't they won't ever mate and get bullied by other crows. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. That families in Gaza are allegedly sending their children to live with other families so that in the event there is more bombings, not all their children will die. And not send them to Aunt Sissy's house until the conflict is over us. As in Paul goes to the Montgomery house. We take their son. And Julie goes to the Duncans. Neighbors are exchanging children in hopes some might live. Human trafficking is very much alive and profitable in the United States as much as we want to think it's only in those other countries. Dogs don't lick us because they love us. It's because they're getting the salt off our skin. There are actual people in the world who think it's funny to put a lit cigarette in a puppy's mouth and force it to breathe. Almost cried typing that. The transatlantic slave trade was entirely unnecessary, and if the church had taken a stronger stance against it, technologies to make growing sugar, tobacco, and cotton viable without slaves probably would have been developed sooner. Did I just subscribe to Whale Facts? Mother hamsters will sometimes eat their newborn babies. This can be for a variety of reasons. But one of the major problems is that a mother hamster will get stressed out and assume that she does not have enough food or space for all of the babies to survive inside of their tiny cage. Sloths will grab their arms thinking it's a tree branch and fall, sustaining serious injury or death. Humans will only reach 6% of the visible universe. It scares me how terribly insignificant we are. People who are not deemed mentally ill are allowed to deny life-saving cancer treatment. Wife, now ex-wife, was diagnosed via biopsy with invasive ductal carcinoma but chose to not receive any medical therapy, including having her cancer staged, not one X-ray, mammography, CT or MRI. She went with GRP juice fasting and is now drinking urine as a homeopathic remedy for cancer. Every day is shocking. I'm trying to do what I can to expose and hold accountable the people who are posting weekly YouTube videos, but can't seem to get anywhere. Since they are not claiming to cure, they are in the clear and no authority can help. Next we will look into the personal backgrounds of each healer detox expert, some based in Florida, US, and one in Saskatchewan, Canada, who have stolen my wife's best friend from me. But I have limited time and money, so this will have to wait. I welcome any help, so if anyone has suggestions then please let me know. A beheaded dog was revived for a consciousness experiment. That poor puppy. Wag your phantom tail, you good boy. My birth was actually planned. So I live in Mumbai, which is a coastal area, and it will most likely drown in the next 50 years due to global warming. On the bright side, Canada and Russia will get a shitload more habitable land at the same time. In the United States, some people were willing to die rather than get treatment for their disease or injury because they know the cost will be a burden to them and their family. I met a friend in an inpatient stay once that told me about her many illnesses that would basically prevent her from ever living a meaningful life. She was in there because she had tried to kill herself because she saw how draining it was on her family, and knew it would only get worse over time. She was a brilliant young woman, and I treasure every conversation I had with her. She ended up killing herself a couple months after she was discharged. I miss her. If you watch a movie that has pets in it, and it's 15+ years old. At the 9/11 museum I learned the unfortunate fact that Flight 93 flew upside down for a period of time before crashing in the field. Apparently, people all over the plane were vomiting. If you've even been on a flight where someone throws up nearby, you can imagine how disgusting, awful, and traumatizing this had to have been. Breaks my heart just thinking about it. Another sad fact is that 8 children were on those planes. 3 were on a trip to California with their teacher. 2 siblings, ages 8 and 3, were traveling with the parents, and after missing their original flight, were put on Flight 77, crashed into the Pentagon. Close bracket. I was in middle school at the time. But nearly 20 years later, 9/11 facts continue to haunt me. Squirrels will spend much of the autumn months burying acorns that they will never find again. In fact, it's because of these forgetful critters that millions of trees are accidentally planted. 95% of all the stars that will ever exist have already been born or have died. Most humans will not be remembered past 200 years. You as a memory tend to die with your grandkids, as the great-grandkids often don't remember or have the chance to meet you. Cats are the most euthanized pets in shelters, even over pit bulls. I worked at an animal shelter when I was a UG lad, and every ducking time someone came to adopt a pet, it was a dog. I even heard a family say, "We want a dog, only cats don't love you." I socialized many of their cats and most of them were so sweet and cuddly and made me just so sad inside every day watching people adopt dogs and ignore the cats. This was a no-kill shelter, but still it was so heart-wrenching I quit because of that. Cats do love you back, you just have to earn their trust, and they show it differently than dogs. All animals show love in their own special way.